Recording. Go. For the reporters on the call, you will have an opportunity to get all of the um we'll send the link out for this. Let's see here. All right. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Sean Van Diver, ShawnVandiver. I serve as the president and board chair of AfghanEvac. I'll be moderating this press briefing. We're going to hear from a lot of incredible folks today. Um, we may even have a special guest at the end, we hope, uh, after the 1 p.m./4 o'clock hour. But for now, let me get there we go. We are here today because a man who stood with us, who followed every instruction for the United States government, now sits in ICE detention right at the U.S.-Mexico border in Otay Mesa, here in San Diego, California. His name is Siad Nori, and his story is not an outlier. It is a part of a deliberate and disturbing trend. Since January, the Trump administration has unraveled the systems that AfghanEvac and other veterans organizations built alongside the federal government to honor our promises to our wartime allies. The refugee admissions program has been suspended, humanitarian parole protections have ended, temporary protected status has been shut down, CARE, the coordinator for Afghan relocation efforts, the office built to coordinate these efforts, is being shut down, potentially tomorrow. We know that their call center shuts down July 31st, so Afghans will have no one to call if they're trying to relocate here. In a particularly cruel twist, thousands of Afghans who came here legally under Biden-era permissions are now being told that they no longer have protection. When they go to court, they're being told that those permissions were improvidently issued, which is just a fancy way of saying we've decided to change our minds. We've decided that your lawful entry no longer matters, and we're going to throw you in jail. Syed's case was dismissed just a few days ago on June 26th, after ICE attorneys reopened it on June 12th and dropped it without warning. He was arrested in the hallway of the courthouse on June 12th. He had no opportunity to pack a bag or call his family. His only crime was trusting the word of the United States government. On June 24th, well, a couple days before June 24th, on June 22nd, in direct response to what happened to Syed, actually, I guess it was June 24th. Last week, in response to what happened to Syed and other cases across the country like his, AfghanEvac and the Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America launched Battle Buddies in partnership to stand with folks who stood with us. It's a national effort to ensure that no Afghan wartime ally ever stands alone in immigration court. No slogans, no confrontations, just presence, wartime allies, shoulder to shoulder with the veterans who they helped protect. They protected us while we were fighting a war in their country. Now they're fighting for their lives and ours, and we're going to stand shoulder to shoulder with them. Because if government won't show up for our allies, we will. We have a lot of speakers here today. I think we're going to start with Syed's attorney, Brian McGoldrick. I'm going to give sort of an update on what we heard. I had occasion to visit, myself and part of the team had occasion to visit Syed a couple times last week. So I'll talk a little bit about that first, and then we're going to go to Brian. Then we'll go to Lieutenant General John Bradley, retired U.S. Air Force. Then we'll go to Dr. Kylan Hunter, CEO of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America. Then we're going to go to, time permitting, Meredith Owen Edwards. If we're up against the 1 o'clock hour, we're going to go over to Assemblymember Chris Ward. And then we hope to see a United States Senator joining us. It just depends on votes and the stuff that they have going on there. So just a quick update on sort of what it was like going down there to visit. Last Friday and this last Sunday, I got to go visit alongside some of my AfghanEvac colleagues, folks who were also signed up to be battle buddies, Syed. And it was a long, drawn-out process. There's barbed wire everywhere, rows and rows and rows of barbed wire. And it actually reminds me of what it looks like in a war zone. It reminds me of going into the base in Djibouti, except for the barbed wire on that case is facing out to protect people from to protect the base from being overrun. In this case, the barbed wire is facing in to keep our wartime allies stuck in this prison environment. Um, it was nice. It was really nice to talk to Syed. My son came with me, my 16-year-old son. Uh, a colleague of mine named Ramat, who is an SIV himself, and a colleague of mine, James, who served in Afghanistan, who's in the Navy. Um, it was really disheartening hearing from Syed that, the food is bad, sure. But what really, I think, spoke to me was how disappointed he was, how he never thought that this would happen. He told us that, one of the reasons he fled Afghanistan after his brother was killed and the Taliban was targeting was that he didn't want to be held in detention. That's not how people should live. And now the government that he stood by locked him up. Um, Yesterday we got to sit with him, shake his hand, give him a hug, uh, and he's just so baffled. They're not giving him his mail. Like somebody mailed him, his brother mailed him some documents that was supposed to arrive in 3 days. They know the name of the person that got it, and it's been 12 days, and he hasn't gotten his mail. That, and it's documents that help prove his story. Um, Syed served alongside our country as far back as 2014. He qualified for SIV in more than one way. He entered through legal means. He did exactly what we asked him to do. He went to court and got snatched up by the United States government, by masked agents of the United States government. This isn't who we're supposed to be. This just isn't. This just isn't who our country's supposed to be, right? What we had before January 20th was a system that was bringing folks like Syed here. 28 flights a month, 5,000 Afghans a month leaving. The Trump administration dismantled it. Enduring welcome was the safest, most secure legal immigration pathway our country's ever seen. And this administration just shut it all down. Syed couldn't wait for enduring welcome. And he had to flee. He had to get the hell out. It still took too long. And now there's just no way. The Trump administration is shutting down every single pathway for those like Syed who are in too much danger to wait, and for folks who have the ability to sort of give the bureaucratic process time. Syed's been abandoned. Our wartime allies have been abandoned. His case is just a canary in a coal mine. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian McGoldrick to talk about Syed's legal case.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being here. As Sean said, Syed left Iran on a humanitarian visa. He traveled all the way through South America and Central America to finally arrive in Mexico in 2024. He applied for the CBP-1 app. He waited for parole just as he was instructed to do. When he had his appointment, he arrived at the San Ysidro port of entry. He presented his appointment and he was invited into the United States through parole. He eventually came to see me. We filed his case with the immigration court. And then, as Sean said, when we showed up on the 12th of June for his calendar hearing to have him set for his final merits hearing, instead we were met with a motion to dismiss by the government, as Sean pointed out, based on an improvidently issued NTA. I've been to court a few more times. At least now the government's not saying that they just need to say that. They're actually saying that, yes, the administration has changed their mind everybody that came in on CBP-1 should all be put into expedited removal. And this is what they've tried to do with Siad. I oppose the motion to dismiss, but unfortunately, after I filed my response, the judge went ahead and granted the motion to dismiss. And now Siad is in expedited removal. He's been promised a credible fear interview. It hasn't been scheduled. I have filed my appearance with USCIS, and I've gotten a response from USCIS that they recognize that I'm his attorney for the credible fear interview, that he's due one, but they said our resources are limited, so we have no idea when the interview will happen. In the meantime, Siad is just stuck in detention with no idea when this interview will happen. If he passes the interview, then he just goes right back into the same removal proceedings he was in before. But we do have to start over completely. If he doesn't pass his credible fear interview, he has the right to appeal that. But ultimately, what the government seems to want to do is deport him. Now, he can't go back to Afghanistan. That would be certain death for him. We don't have diplomatic relations with them, so we can't send him back there right now. But the Supreme Court has told this administration that they can, in fact, send people to third countries. So there's the possibility he could be sent anywhere, where the administration is trying to set up arrangements with Kosovo, with South Sudan, who knows where else. So, you know, the future could be very dire for Siad. Now, it turns out also that even though we're waiting for this credible fear interview, Siad could be released if ICE wanted to release him on his own recognizance. So we're working very hard to try to get that for him. But without that, Siad's just going to stay in jail until he eventually has his day in court, if he ever gets that. When I told Siad that his case had ultimately been dismissed, he was very dejected, and he says, so, you know, we just have to start all over, right? It's already been a long process for him. But yeah, we have to start all over. And what's particularly confusing about all this is that his brother, 2 months ago, based on the same set of facts, based on the same evidentiary documents, was granted asylum. So, you know, we have these two people with the same experience in Afghanistan, taking the same route to get here, following the same rules, with just completely disparate results, right? Siad is in jail. The government's trying to remove him, but his brother is now enjoying asylum here in the United States. So that's where we are right now. I've spoken to Siad. We are going, at this point, we're going to push to get his credible fear interview as soon as we can, and then see what remedies await us after that.
Thank you so much, Brian. Look, Syed followed every rule. He served alongside our troops. We are abandoning these folks. Battle Buddies is a response, but not a solution, right? The only solution is to stand with our allies, to follow through on the promises we made for them. But in the meantime, I'm going to bring Dr. Kylan Hunter on from IAVA to talk a little bit about Battle Buddies, and then we'll go to Assemblymember Ward.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you so much, Sean, and thank you for everyone for being here. My name is Dr. Kylan Hunter, Kyleanne, last name Hunter, and I am the CEO of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, or IAVA. Standing next to our Afghan allies who have served shoulder to shoulder with us, who saved our lives, who were responsible for saving the lives of countless other Americans and Afghans and third country nationals, is something that IAVA has been deeply involved in for decades. We fought hard for the initial policy and legislation that created a pathway for our allies to come here. And in the chaos that was the 2021 withdrawal from Afghanistan, many of us were on the phone working in our own capacity to bring these allies back here, people that we knew closely, that we feared. And we see this as an extension of our service, that what we fought for was not only our brothers and sisters who wore the US uniform or one of the NATO uniform, but those who risked their lives and the lives of their families to put on uniforms and serve beside us, whether that was directly embedded to troops, serving alongside the intelligence community, or many of the other various contractors who had helped alongside us with IAVA. In our most recent survey of our membership, over 72% of post 9/11 veterans believe that we need to be doing more for our Afghan allies, that we need to be making pathways here easier, that we need to be reducing the bureaucracy in order to honor the promises that we made to these brave men and women who served alongside us. And this isn't political, this is personal for many of us. These are the people that we served with, and that is where the root of where IAVA's commitment to this issue comes. In standing up battle buddies, what we did was, as Sean mentioned, not make a solution, but right now a temporary stopgap measure. Battle buddies is not a protest. It is our continued commitment to the promise. It is our continued commitment to stand shoulder to shoulder to those who stood with us. When the government is failing, we are once again finding ourselves as veterans, heeding the call and being willing to put our bodies on the line to bear witness and ensure that justice and due process are served. As of now, in the about 5 days since we have launched this initiative, we have over 225 veterans who have volunteered to show up with an Afghan ally so that they are not alone in court. And this is important both symbolically and procedurally that we have here. It is important that our Afghan allies know that even in the midst of uncertainty that is coming out of the executive branch right now, that we as veterans have not abandoned them, that we have not forgotten the sacrifices that they have made, and that we are not going to let the legal pathways fall to the wayside. And if that means putting our bodies shoulder to shoulder with them, like they put it shoulder to shoulder with us, then we were doing so again here. It is our time now to stand with them in court the way that they stood with us alongside on the battlefield. And while we may not be taking literal bullets here, we are taking bullets with words quite a bit often. We are being told that these are individuals who may not be here legally. Did they have the proper paperwork? And as you've heard from attorneys at this point, they did everything legally and they followed every process that was here. So we thank you all for taking the time to cover this very important initiative. As Sean had mentioned, Saeed's case is a canary in the coal mine. And as part of Battle Buddies, we are saying that as veterans, we will bear witness to make sure that this does not happen quietly once again, and this does not happen in the shadows once again. And no Afghan who is here is alone when having to face their day in court. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kai. I got to tell you, it's been a real pleasure working with Dr. Hunter and IAVA on this initiative, and the response has been overwhelming. Next up, we're going to go, I flipped the order all around here. So we're going to go with Assemblymember Ward, then we'll go to General Bradley. That's the only time I'm going to put an elected official before a general. So, all right, Assemblymember Ward, my representative in the California State Assembly.
Well, thank you, Sean, and thank you, everybody. Sorry for a little bit of a hoarse voice today. Chris Ward, representing the California State Assembly in Central San Diego in the California State Legislature, and just grateful to really be here to echo the support that you're hearing and the pleas that you're hearing, because, of course, what happened to Siad Nori should not have been possible. Putting a lot of partisan politics aside, he did everything right, including putting himself and his family at great risk while assisting our military while we were in Afghanistan. Now, Syed is a member of our community and now is a California constituent who came here seeking safety and a future free from danger. As a wartime ally, he helped us out in our time of need, and coming to America, he did everything that he was supposed to do. Yet the federal government has done exactly what it promised it would not, putting him at risk once again. Here in California, we're a state that is proud of our immigrant community. Our Afghan refugee community is no different. Syed should be here, not in a detention facility. And the reckless approach that this administration has taken to enforcing immigration policy endangers individuals who are following the legal process, forcing them back to countries where they face credible threats. It's chaotic, it's cruel, and it's devoid of compassion. Carrying out enforcement actions to meet arbitrary quotas that do nothing but instill fear and terrorize our communities. We see this on a regular basis now here in the Golden State. And detaining individuals, often while they're at work, running errands, or even attending their own immigration hearings by masked agents, offer no explanation. So we're calling on our federal government to fix what you broke, and specifically today for ICE to release Syed. What we are seeing is unacceptable for any government, and California is not going to stand by while you rip apart our communities. We are doing everything in our power to stand up for our community members, but we should not at all be in this position in the first place. In contrast to the cruelty of DC, we here are supporting community members who are targeted or at risk of being targeted with legal support through several routes and proactive education to help them know their rights. A process that was thoughtfully developed to honor our commitments while keeping our community safe has happened, but there are no takebacks. Our word, the honor of what it means to be America, is on the line. And people like Syed are not criminals, and they are not a number to meet a quota. So we're grateful for AfghanEvac and response initiatives like Battle Buddies, veterans who are standing up to this injustice and show a better path, one that had been working. I want to thank you for allowing me to be a part of this press conference here today.
Thank you so much, Assemblymember Ward. We really appreciate you being here today. The next person that we're going to go to has had a storied career. I was on the phone with one of my colleagues earlier, and the colleague said, "Oh my God, look at the rack on his chest of ribbons of ribbons and medals, because he is a legit war hero." Lieutenant General John Bradley. Oh, you're muted, General Bradley.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Okay. No problem, Sean. He's a current elected official. I'm a former general. And if you stay in a long time, like 41 years, they give you a lot of ribbons, which I don't deserve some of them. But I'll tell you, I served in Vietnam. I flew combat missions for a year, close air support. I know how important it is to support our Army, our Marines on the ground. And in Afghanistan, we didn't do any missions there without support from Afghan people like Syed, interpreters who were essential for every single mission we went on, because we needed interpreters to help us with many parts of the missions. They put their lives at risk, just like our American soldiers and Marines on the ground did. They are important to us. This is a mutual trust issue. It's a national security issue, because this will damage our national reputation. When we go to combat in other areas on the ground, we need help from local community people, local people, to be able to have a successful mission. And if we can't find people who trust us anymore because we break our word with those who do help us and risk their lives right alongside us, then we are not going to be successful in any operation. Syed has played a critical part of this mission. As I said, it was important to have interpreters that could help us talk to people so we could learn things about the enemies we were fighting, so we could be successful. We have a moral duty to help him and others. He needs to be released. This is not the country that Sean and I fought for in our different combat experiences. In 1975, I had Vietnamese friends pilots from the Vietnamese Air Force who were brought to the United States quickly. There was nothing like the vetting we have today. No one ever has come to the United States with more vetting than those that we've brought in from Afghanistan over the last few years. The vetting is incredibly thorough and appropriate, and people like Syed need to be left here so that they can enjoy some freedoms, which they don't have at home. This is a signal that America is not what it used to be, that we don't believe in the rule of law. He followed all of the rules. He followed all the laws. He's done nothing wrong. He helped us. He put his life at risk. So my question is, what message does this send to those who we ask for help in the future? I think it's a negative message, and it is so important that this decision be turned around, that Syed be released immediately, and that others like him are allowed to stay in the United States. Thank you.
Thank you so much, General Bradley. I really appreciate it. Next up, we have, look, AfghanEvac and Afghans have had a lot of champions throughout this effort, right? We've had folks in the last administration, we had folks all throughout government, and we've had folks all across the political spectrum outside of government. On the Hill, there have been a lot of champions. Some have done a little. A few have done a lot. And one of the people who have done the most for Afghans and has been the most reliable partners that we've had on the Hill is Senator Chris Coons. And we're so grateful to have him here today. Senator?
Thank you, Sean. And Sean, I appreciate just how hard you and everyone else connected with AfghanEvac have worked. I don't deserve the compliments you just gave me, but Sarb Sangvi on my team certainly does.
He sure does.
And the folks who do constituent work for me in Delaware certainly do, and you certainly do. This is one of the most heartbreaking betrayals of the Trump administration. On a bipartisan basis, a large group of us in the Senate worked hard to support a program developed during the previous administration and that you, Sean, helped champion that got tens of thousands of Afghans safely out of Afghanistan and relocated safely to the United States. Folks who had served alongside American troops, who had helped facilitate our mission, and who were facing threats to their lives. Syed is exactly one of those examples of an Afghan who, as a translator and a logistics employee of the U.S. mission, supported our work in Afghanistan. And as you just heard the general share, whether it was in Vietnam or in Iraq or in Afghanistan or in future conflicts, the United States critically relies on those local partners willing to step forward and risk their lives. And the fact that the Taliban burst into a family wedding and murdered his brother, seeking him as well, gives me all the sense I need that Syed is someone who has a credible fear of persecution or of being killed if he were forced to return to Afghanistan. He followed the rules. He came here appropriately. He is someone who should not be facing imminent deportation to another country. And I appreciate that my colleague, Senator Tillis, recently spoke out on the floor about his sense of alarm, that we are not seeing an administration using its deportation powers and capacities to deport violent criminals, which is broadly supported by most Americans, but is instead dedicating deportation resources and energy and initiative to deporting people like Syed, who served alongside American troops. So bluntly, I think we need to redouble our effort to pass the Afghan Adjustment Act. It's a bipartisan bill we worked very hard on in the last Congress. You heard the general reference the process by which those who served alongside us in Vietnam were resettled and given legal status quickly in the United States. The Afghan Adjustment Act would accomplish something similar. It would allow vetted Afghans to come to the United States and to get legal status fairly quickly. And it would provide certainty and predictability for the tens of thousands that are already here and who came here through legal pathways. We owe those who served alongside us nothing less. And we owe the veterans, the Americans who served and fought in Afghanistan, nothing less. There's an Afghan in Delaware, whose name I won't use, but who means a great deal to me personally. When I had the chance to meet with the Delawarean, a member of our special forces, whose life he saved, that Delawarean said, that knowing that this individual who worked alongside him as a bomb disposal tech and as a translator, he could not sleep at night if he knew that this friend, this battle buddy, this Afghan who had risked his life for him was at risk himself. The administration is pretending that Afghanistan is somehow a safe place to which those who have temporary protected status here in the United States can return, or to which someone like Siad could be forced to return. Nothing could be further from the truth. We owe them doubling down, doubling our effort, and making certain that those who've come here legally enjoy the fruits of freedom for which they served and sacrificed alongside our troops. Thank you, Sean, and thank you to everyone who's joining us for this press conference today.
Thank you so much, Senator Coons. We really appreciate you showing up today. We have two more things to do. One, Meredith Owen Edwards from Refugee Council USA is going to speak very shortly. And then I'll be reading Syed's statement that he dictated to me across the detention facility table. And then we're going to take some questions. So from there, we will go. All right, Meredith, over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Meredith Owen Edwards with Refugee Council USA. I'm going to focus a little bit more on what Congress has been doing that impacts folks like Syed and other refugees, asylum seekers, and our immigrant neighbors. So as the Senate proceeds with its One Big Beautiful Bill or budget reconciliation effort and hopes to pass the legislation this week, it is incredibly important that all of our members of Congress understand how important it is for them to reject this bill and any amendments that would further devastate refugee, asylum seeking, and immigrant communities. As it currently stands in the Senate bill, it excludes refugees and humanitarian populations from long-standing bipartisan support of eligibility for Medicaid, Medicare, Children's Health Insurance Program, or CHIP, Affordable Care Act marketplace coverage, and food assistance programs like SNAP. Refugees and humanitarian entrants would also be caught up in a supercharged immigration enforcement, expanded family and immigrant detention, and deportation apparatus. And the bill would establish significant additional fees for asylum seekers, refugees, and other humanitarian entrants. So as Sean stated, that his story isn't an outlier, this is a warning, and the budget reconciliation legislation certainly doubles down on that statement. At the same time, the U.S. resettlement program is effectively shut down, and the government made clear in its latest Pasito litigation filing last week that the U.S. government is applying the visa and travel ban to refugee admissions. That is contrary to our interpretation and the plaintiff's interpretation in the Pasito case. And we know that our strength is maximized when civil society comes together and is greater than the sum of our parts. So I commend Battle Buddies as it reminds us what's possible when civil society bands together and leads where government fails. But only the federal government can scale protection and access to assistance. But all community members have an important role to play in maintaining our capacity to welcome. So today we're calling for Congress to step up, do what the White House has chosen not to do. We urge Congress to hold the administration accountable for shutting down the U.S. resettlement and asylum programs and access to so many visa programs. We also want Congress to reverse course on budget reconciliation, and instead of cutting off access to basic human needs services, we want our elected leaders to be investing in community wholeness. So with that, I'm going to leave it there and I yield my time back to Sean.
Thank you so much. Folks, I'm going to read Syed's statement that he shared with me. And this will be in the go.afghanevac.org/stand with Syed. If you go to the June 30th presser, you'll be able to see that in there. This is from Siad Nori, prepared for ICE detention on June 29th, 2025, at about 12:45 p.m. First, I want to thank everyone who has helped me, my lawyer, AfghanEvac, all the veterans who are standing by me, and the people who have supported me with their voices and their hearts. I never imagined so many Americans would care about what's happening to me. Thank you. To the American government, I believed in you. I worked with you. I helped you for years, side by side. I trusted your words and followed your rules. That trust brought me here. Now I sit in detention, treated like a criminal for doing exactly what I was told to do. I crossed borders to be safe. I asked for protection the right way, and yet I am punished. I am a husband. I am a father. I am not a threat. I'm not your enemy. I'm your friend. You say that people like me should come legally. I did, and now I am locked away. To President Trump, I love America, and I was building a life here. I had a car. I had a bank account. I had a job. Who will take care of that now, of all of that now that I'm in detention? Instead of locking us away with no warning, why not offer us a shelter or some support? Maybe help us learn English or provide resources to succeed. There are better ways than treating people like criminals, especially those who stood with you during war. Please, don't turn your back on us. Keep your promises. Let me live in peace with my family in this country that I love. That's direct from Siad. We have a few asks. We want Siad to be released. We want all cases like Syed's. If you have an SIV application in, if you have some claim to be in the enduring welcome pipeline, then we need to see President Trump exempt those folks. We were trying to work with the last administration for a process that would work for people who were coming up through the border, and they just weren't willing to get there on that. So President Trump has an opportunity to be a hero to veterans, to these wartime allies. Keep these people out of our detention facilities. I've been in there a couple times now. It's not a pleasant environment. Syed doesn't deserve to be there. No Afghan who served alongside of our country deserves to be there. Hell, most people don't deserve to be there. We're really grateful for everybody coming out today. Now we're going to open it up to questions. And if you have questions for the elected officials who left, they had, they're very busy. You can feel free to send them our way, or if you know how to get in touch with them with their communication staff, then great. If not, we can help you get there. All right, Rebecca Keel. Jessica, can you spotlight all of the speakers, please? Go ahead, Rebecca.
Great. Thank you for doing this. So for Brian, how quickly do these expedited removal proceedings usually take? In other words, how quickly could we see Syed deported? And then do you have any concern that the government's talk of, oh, we're understaffed, so we don't know when the credible fear interview could be, is just a delay tactic so they can report or deport him before that? And then for Kyle-Ann or Sean or whoever wants to answer on the Battle Buddies program, has any veteran actually gone to court yet? And if so, how has that gone? Or if they haven't, when might we expect to see that happen?
Okay. So they have already recognized that he has to have a credible fear interview. So technically he can't be deported until he has the credible fear interview. And then it would have to be determined that he does not have a credible fear. Then he could be deported under expedited removal. Normally the CFI is supposed to happen within 10 days. Whether it's a delaying tactic or not, I don't know. The USCIS is so understaffed right now anyway. I mean, we're waiting 5 to 10 years for people who file affirmative applications just to get their regular asylum interview. So with as crowded as the detention centers are now, they have to be incredibly backlogged already with these credible fear interviews. So I can't really speak to whether it's a delaying tactic, but I'm not hopeful that it's going to happen right away unless there's some pressure to get it happen right away.
Thank you so much for answering, Brian. Kai, if it's okay with you, I'll take the question on Battle Buddies.
Yeah, that works with me.
Perfect. I just have my team pulling up the number on exactly how many signups we have right now from how many states and all of that. But no, the only Battle Buddies action that's happened so far is showing up for Syed. We just launched it. This week we'll be communicating with all of the Battle Buddies who have signed up. 225 have signed up. There are 43 states represented. We're still missing Alaska, Arkansas, Delaware, Iowa, Indiana, Louisiana, North Dakota, Vermont, and Wyoming. But I do suspect we'll be able to get those folks signed up relatively soon. We do want to hit all 50 states. We've had 101 Army sign up, 31 Air Force, 31 Navy, 21 Marine Corps, 11 National Guard. Somebody was special and put in U.S. Navy, so 32 Navy. It's good that we're beating the Air Force. And then 1 Coast Guardsman. It is really, really incredible. I'm pulling up why they're signing up real quick, just to give you a sort of an overview of what we're seeing. Generally, it's people are pissed off that our allies are being snatched up by masked people, right? We don't wear masks and we're overseas doing crowd control or any other sort of action. If we break it down into themes, 141 of the 225 signups signed up as the primary reason was their support for Afghan allies. 136 said U.S. moral responsibility or a policy failure. 62 said that it was veteran solidarity or they served in Afghanistan. 38 are opposed to ICE detention and injustice. 31 moral and ethical duty, and then a personal connection to Afghans. There are some sample quotes. To uphold the promises our nation made to on-the-ground allies to risk everything, I want to hold our nation accountable to its promises. As an Army JAG Corps paralegal in Afghanistan, I helped our own soldiers get expedited citizenship. What this administration is doing now is anti-American. Another one said, I believe it is imperative to stand and support our Afghan allies. I care for 2 families of former Afghan special forces who are in hiding. Look, yeah, we haven't
Can
had
I
anybody
speak to that, Sean?
Yeah, please do.
I want to tell everybody that's here just how important having these people in the hallways in the immigration court really is. It's terrifying just to walk down the hall. I'm a citizen. I don't have to worry about getting snatched up. It terrifies me to walk down this hall. Here's all of these people armed to the teeth, wearing masks, just ready to grab somebody. It's really
You
frightening.
just don't know who they're going to grab.
We have no idea. You don't find out whether your client is on the list until you're sitting at the attorney table and you hear the government attorney say motion to dismiss. That's when you find out whether your client's going to get snatched up when you walk out the door. There's no notice. It is terrifying. We wouldn't know about what happened with Syed if volunteers weren't already out there with cameras watching what happened. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for volunteers. So this program, I think, is really important. This all has to happen in the light, and we need people standing with our allies and with people in the courthouses.
Just to add to that one from the IAVA side, some of the things to echo what Sean has been saying about the quotes. We've had outreach, or I have had personal, I will say, outreach from about half a dozen of the folks who have signed up, who have also sent me a note saying that they would be willing to sponsor those who signed up to travel to other states and other localities if that's needed. If like the sort of where the states are and where the individuals are didn't necessarily match up. I've had folks as well who say, like, I'm willing to get folks who have the time to this, which I think just shows how personal and important this is to our population. As I remember before, this is overwhelmingly, regardless of one's political affiliation, a topic that for decades has been top of mind of our generation of veteran here. And so I think to the point of we've got the folks not only signing up to go themselves, but also saying, you know, I'll take the extra step and ensure that people can get to the places that they need to be, is, I think, a very, very, very strong testament.
That's exactly right. Thank you. Thank you all. It's also of note to the reporters here on the call, I think 87% or something like that said that they'd be willing to do media. So as people are showing up, you're going to have a lot of folks that are willing to talk to you about the experiences that they're having. Go ahead, Andrew Dyer, the intrepid reporter, Andrew Dyer.
Hey, thanks so much. My question is more, I don't know who it's for, but can you address maybe what the administration is saying? We heard one statement about Syed that they didn't have evidence of his documentation that he worked with the U.S. And then beyond just his case, is this like a widespread problem? Are there a bunch of Afghans in our country claiming to have worked with the U.S. military who did not?
I'll take that one. DHS has said that Syed was not vetted. DHS has said there's no evidence that Syed served alongside our country. Both of those things are lies, knowable lies. They know that they're not telling the truth. You can say that I called Trisha McLaughlin a dirty liar in print if you want. Christy Noem too. They're full of shit. If you need a different quote, they're full of crap. If you're a family outlet. Let's take these things one by one. And Jessica, if you want to hop in and talk about this too, you're welcome to. Let's take the idea of vetting first. Syed came in through CBP-1. For those that are like, for the uninitiated, CBP-1 is an app that the government built so you would put in all of your information. They didn't do that so you could just have a roll call list at the border. They did that because they take all of that information and they run it through all their databases. They check to see if there's a terrorist coming to our border to try to get in. Like, of course he was vetted coming in. Did he get the enduring welcome vetting? No, he didn't. But he was still vetted on his way in. Everybody who enters through CBP-1 is what they call inspected, right? CBP looks into their whole background. They take biometrics, and Brian's going to hop in and tell you about some messages that Syed's got that prove that. He was vetted, and the vetting continues, right? And you know when he was best vetted was when he worked alongside the U.S. military, and our service members, our servicemen and women felt safe interacting with him. That's a pretty fucking good vetting for me. Brian, do you want to talk about the biometric stuff? And
Sure.
then I will.
Sure. So as Sean said, they take your biometrics when you present yourself at the port of entry. He immediately made an application for work authorization. You have to be vetted again to get work authorization. The government sent him a notice saying, hey, we already have your biometrics from when you first came in. We don't need your biometrics again. And they gave him his work authorization. And then most pointedly, when we had our hearing on the 12th, the judge was also willing to set us for the merits hearing on his asylum application. The court can't do that if he hasn't been further vetted to the point where the court can grant asylum. And the judge asked the DHS attorney, do you have everything you need so that I can grant him asylum if it comes to that? The government said, we have everything we need. So for anyone else to say he wasn't properly vetted just makes no sense. And just on top of that, his brother, based on the same documents, based on the same evidence, was granted asylum 2 months before. Yes, they've been vetted. Of course they've been vetted.
Now, I want to address the other side of this. Trisha McLaughlin, noted liar, has from the podium said that DHS checked and DOD has no record of his service. Well, a few things are wrong with that statement. Broadly, DOD didn't even keep records. The record keeping was on the Afghan wartime allies themselves, and then they were verified against contracts. What I think happened is DHS said, we should check with DOD. And they were like, we should. And they didn't know who to call. because we also know that Syed was verified through Project Rabbit, which was a system where companies could upload their payroll data and their HR information so that if Afghans couldn't get both a letter of recommendation and a company letter, that they could still meet the letter of the law. Syed was verified through that. We know that. Syed qualified under two different mechanisms for SIV. We know that. I've called personally and verified that Syed, we weren't going to take this case on if we thought that there was any chance that this could be that there could be anything sort of wrong with Syed's case. Hold on, I'm fixing my camera here. So, Andrew, I'm so glad you asked that question. Generally, I used to believe that we could trust the things that government was saying, but now I know for certain that this DHS cannot be trusted. You have to like nail them down to get them to admit that they're wrong about anything, and even then, they will try every way to cause harm. Now, we have another person on the call who I just spotlighted because she's on our team. Her name's Jessica Bradley Rushing. Everybody meet Jessica. She was the communications director at the Coordinator for Afghan Relocation Efforts and has worked in the congressional side, the executive branch side at the State Department, and the advocacy side. So I'm going to have Jessica come on and talk a little bit about why they're full of shit also.
Thank you, Sean. So from the get-go, I think we can know for a fact that the DHS statements were not based on reality. By default, as to what Sean and Brian have both spoken to, Syed was vetted when he came across the border. But we also know that there are not a whole host of Afghans throughout the country who are here who were unvetted, right? Anybody who came across the border via CBP-1 would have undergone the same process that Syed went through. But we also know that Afghans who came here through Enduring Welcome are the most vetted population of immigrants in our nation's history.
Exactly right.
There are multiple rounds of vetting that take place, including before anyone was ever relocated out of Afghanistan. So prior to even getting on a government relocation flight out of Kabul, folks were pre-travel vetted. And that was a process that was implemented under the Biden administration and was part of the Enduring Welcome program. Once folks left Afghanistan and arrived in one of the third country platforms that the US government managed over the course of the last 3.5 years, they underwent additional vetting. The vetting standards for refugees and SIV applicants are incredibly high, and they are vetted by the interagency and the organizations within our federal government who are responsible for that sort of security vetting all had a hand in ensuring that the folks who came through those third country platforms received the strictest vetting possible. So the idea that there was anybody who came through that pathway and is here in the country, that we have a whole bunch of folks running around from Afghanistan who are unvetted is absolutely false. Happy to speak to any of the other Enduring Welcome questions, but can verify, DOD runs Project Rabbit. It has a new name now, and I forget what it's called, DASD or something like that.
DASD, yeah.
DASD. But that mechanism proves that if Syed was verified by Project Rabbit, then DOD already looked at his stuff. So I won't maybe repeat Sean's statement, but I will concur with it.
Meredith, how do you feel about it? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that it is incredibly important that we have a robust operations of the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program, Afghan SIV programs, and all of the programs that support our allies and other vulnerable populations, because you need all of them working together to have a healthy pipeline to support the infrastructure that is our capacity to process, admit, and then support the integration of newcomers. And so it's not just about one case that we talked about today. It's not just about one program that we're talking about today. It's actually about all of the refugee, asylum, immigrant, and other programs that the U.S. government has historically had that supports our allies and friends.
That's exactly right. We're going to open it up for a few more questions. While we're seeing if folks want to raise their hand, I'm going to foot stomp what Meredith was just saying. All of these various systems, all of the things that President Trump is doing, they'll point at the visa ban and say there's a SIV exemption. They leave these little like narrow hallways open in some of these things. But when looked at in totality, this administration is shutting down all of the mechanisms, all of the pathways, with very few exceptions, to allow our wartime allies to get here. And they're doing it on purpose. They know what's happening. We used to think that it was an accident. We used to think that maybe they didn't understand that by kinking the hose over here, you were stopping the full flow over there. And we know where it's coming. We know it's coming from Stephen Miller. I hear from within the White House all the time that people there don't like Stephen Miller, but there's nothing they can do about him, especially on this issue. And I wish that weren't true, but I hope that reporters will cover more than just this issue with Syed or Battle Buddies. If you're looking to do a broader story about sort of the full spectrum of like where we started back in August of 2021, what was working, what wasn't, what happened over the course of 2021 through to 2025, and then what happened on January 20th when the gates closed shut. We would love to talk to you. Everybody on this call would love to talk to you. I think this represents a good amount of the knowledge in that space, and there's a lot of other folks too we'd be happy to connect you to. For the reporters, we have a list of about 160 Afghans who are willing to talk to media. Most of them would prefer to remain anonymous. I'm happy to share that list with you if you will agree that they get to decide their anonymity or not. Number two, we have a lot of battle buddies that are willing to talk to the media. Number three, if you want to get in touch with any of these folks here, let us know. Me or Jessica will handle that and help you get in touch with folks. And please send us your stories as you write them. Do we have any other questions? Panelists / speakers, does anybody want to say anything before we go? All right, seeing nobody come off mute, we're going to say thank you. Perfect timing, right at 1:30. We love a well-executed mission. We will see you all soon. And this will be available in the drive and on our YouTube.
Great job.